Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner Nation. My name is Don Freeman.
And I'm Scott Warr, and this is kind of an episode that Don and I have been looking forward to because we have no idea what we're going to talk about today. Although I'm gonna start it with a topic sentence or sentences. We have one of our good friends, Krissy Moehl, joining us again on the podcast. She's been on multiple times. She's written the great book. What's the name of the book, Krissy? I have both versions right here.
Running Your First Ultra.
Oh, of course, Running Your First Ultra in its second edition, and it's awesome. But we're having her on because she just finished running and getting 15th place at the High Lonesome 100. I don't know much about it other than some of the research I've done, and you know how great I am at research. Some of it's true, some of it's not, some of it's out of date. But it's a 100-mile race in the Colorado mountains that challenges runners with high flying courses. It's in the Sawatch range. It starts and ends at the base of Mount Princeton. It's a loop course that features 23,500 feet of vertical gain and reaches an elevation of over 13,000 feet. For you metric people, you can ask Google what that is in meters. They traverse 27 miles on the National Scenic Continental Divide Trail and 35 miles on the Colorado Trail, encountering 5 alpine passes, 2 ghost towns. I want to hear about those. Remote basins, soaring ridges, and idyllic meadows. It's relentless 100-mile race. It's supported by a bunch of great volunteers, and Krissy just completed it and completed it very quickly. So Krissy, thanks for joining us. First of all, tell us a little bit about, is this your first time you've run High Lonesome?
First time running High Lonesome. And hey, if it takes 100 miles to get back on to get to chat with you guys, I'm always excited to see your faces on that thing. Yeah, it's been almost 6.5. I'm rounding up. It's been 6.5 years since I've run a 100-miler. And
oh, wow.
This one caught my attention about 3 years ago. A fellow Scarpa athlete, Gabe Joyce, he posted his photos from it. And I was like, if I ever run another 100, it's that one. It's just, I love the high alpine. I love getting above tree line. It's just my happy place. And so seeing those photos, I was like, I want to be so silly, but I want to be in those photos. So I actually applied for it the next year, and the race director wrote me back and told me I didn't have a qualifier. And I was like, what? And it was the first time in 20 years of racing that I wanted to go, do you know who I am? But I hadn't run an ultra over 50 miles in 6+ years, or at that point, I guess 5 years. And so my 2 buddies, who we should get them on. We should do the AZT. Kathleen Egan and Jenny Jerk and we've done 3 parts of the Arizona Trail. We've got two more sections to go. We're 500 miles in. And on our hike, we were all talking about this beautiful race and laughing about how Krissy doesn't have a qualifier. And Jenny had actually applied for it, been on the wait list. And she knew that if you did their 50-50, so in September, they hold the West Side Winder 50K. And then the next day, the Sawatch 50K. If you do 2 50Ks back to back, that can be your qualifier. So I signed up and did that last September. And then all 3 of us put in for the race. All 3 of us made it to the starting line, and gosh dang it, all 3 of us made it to the finish line. So that was a really cool, I guess, kind of quick summary of how I got from here to there.
So those of us that know your resume, and it involves Western States, a victory or 2 at UTMB. I mean, do they know who you are? They sure should, and probably did, but they've got to stick by the rules. They get it. Totally. Special favors for one. We've got to do that. But what I want to know is 6 years from a 100-mile run, were you a little bit apprehensive, a little bit nervous, a little giddy, a little bit of a quote unquote rookie first timer nerves going through you? Because that would happen to me.
All of the above. Yeah. I ran the Lake City. It used to be called Lake City. It's now called the San Juan Solstice 50 on June 22nd, and was just shocked. Like, oh gosh, what did I do? It was so hard. It took me 14 hours. Previous version of myself probably could have done that in about 10 hours. Just all the data points were adding up. Like, what are you doing, Krissy? This is like, you're not ready. Like, and all the doubt and everything. And I tried to get my head on straight after that. I had 2 weeks with my family in Montana, and then I flew back to Colorado to have 10 days to acclimate again before High Lonesome. And I went on a training run with Jenny, and it took me like 4.5 hours to do 14 miles. And I was like, what it basically boiled down to is, how did I win on a world stage and now am concerned about chasing cutoffs? Like, how, like, yes, 6 years, 7 years have passed, but like the mental piece, like our brains don't operate linearly like that. They don't, like, they hold on to what the last, mine does, what the last thing was. And I went through about 5 days of, thank goodness for friends and boyfriends and parents and people to just, what, this whole like process. And I was kind of excited to share this little bit with you.
Yeah.
On Tuesday night, like probably almost 2 weeks before, like, I guess 10 days before the race, I sat in my car and I just purged all the thoughts. I'm doing this blog for Patagonia. And so I've been tracking my mental state as I lead up to this 100-miler. And so I just used that document and tried to get rid of all of these doubts. And where is it coming from? Is it hormonal? Is it the fact that I'm 46? Like, why am I having all these doubts? That was another piece. I never, thankfully, had that kind of lack of self-confidence when I was racing before. This was all new to me. I hadn't faced thoughts of like, can I do it? I always knew I could do it. Just what was it going to go like? And so I purged all that out. And then it started like super windy, super like raining. I was up at Monarch Pass, which is 11,300 feet, sleeping in a Subaru. And this, I was like, oh shoot, I have to pee. So I got out my raincoat and I moved the car. And I came back to the car and there's this huge rainbow over the car. And I was like, whoa. And I took a picture of it. And so then I got back in the car and I have Normatec boots. My boyfriend gave them to me. Best Valentine's Day present ever. And I was sitting in the Normatec boots in the back of the Subaru because this is my home for the next 10 days. And this moth kept like tapping at the window. And I was like, it's pouring down rain. How is this moth flying? And so I asked Siri, I was like, what is the significance of a moth? And it says rebirth and transformation. And my mouth just dropped. And then I searched rainbows and same thing of like signs of hope, new beginnings, a person that's always in search of self. I was like, all right, universe, thank you. You're speaking to me.
Wow.
So I love that kind of stuff. And I was excited to get to share it because then I had to go back and talk to all those people on those 5 days that had to listen to me with all my doubts. Like, okay, I got it. Like, things are coming around.
It was a rainbow and a moth, and I'm totally good now. Like,
yeah.
Oh, maybe you're not good,
Right,
Krissy.
Krissy,
Maybe
okay.
we are worried.
Totally.
Krissy, I want to go back to, I mean, obviously the universe was confirming that you had purged all this. I want to get back to, I mean, I'm thinking, boy, there's some things I need to purge. How did you purge all of these thoughts? I want to know the process. I mean, is just acknowledging them? Is it verbalizing? What did you do?
A little bit of I think all the like conversations with different people. I like dear trusted friends that can like answer questions back and forth, validate feelings, help you see other parts. Just listen. Like sometimes you don't. For me, I don't want to be told it's okay, it's all right. It just is. Here it is. And so going through that a bit, and then I'd been staying. The jerks were also sleeping up at Monarch Pass, but that was the one night they'd gone to Boulder, so I didn't have the distraction of talking about it. So it was just me in my head. And writing has been a great tool ever since I worked at the Conservation Alliance. My boss there was really, he really emphasized the importance of writing and just how you communicate. And that's become through journaling, through I got to write a book. And then when I try and post things, I'm really conscious about how I write and what it brings up. and I just let myself be with it. And then just, I don't know, if you're open to the, I call it the woo-woo side of things, like to have the storm blow in, kind of when I was just feeling like I was done with thoughts, and then the rain, and it wasn't even conscious, right? But I was like, ah, dang it, I have to pee. But then to have that rainbow just like perfectly frame my little home for the next whatever bit, and then the moth. I mean, I went and actually I found, you'll see it in the photos, I found a temporary moth tattoo the next day I was shopping for crew gifts, and this moth tattoo was sitting in the front of the store when I walked in. I was like, all right, okay, if I'm not listening, like, here it is. It's all.
So where is that moth tattooed? Is it on you right now? Did you step into the tattoo parlor and take care of that?
I just did a temporary one. It was on my leg during the race, and it was beautiful. It lasted all through the race, and then the shower after, it was gone. It was just that race was supposed to be my transformation race, apparently.
Love it.
Hey, Krissy, we'll link this in the show notes, but how do we access this Patagonia blog that you've been doing for High Lonesome?
Oh, awesome. Thanks. Yeah, that'll come out a little bit later, though. Patagonia is really diligent about their editing, so it could be this fall by the time that comes out.
So it's not available yet. But
not yet.
But those photos of the rainbow and the moth, are those on your Instagram, or where can we see those?
Yeah, I didn't share them. Maybe I should go back and put those up, or maybe they'll be a part of the Patagonia story. Or that's the other thing, is Patagonia has it's not a podcast, but it's hosted on the same places that podcasts are held. It's called Patagonia Stories, and we're going to do an interview on that as well. So there's all sorts of great follow-up to this. I'm calling it the aging athlete. Like, what does this whole thing look like as we age, and what parts move on, and how do we stay like connected to it?
I'm curious. 6.5 years from running a 100-mile race. What's the reasoning for that? You just didn't feel that was a necessity, or anything was calling to have you run that distance, and you just wanted to go with the shorter distances? Because I know you've run lots of different varieties of races, but you're fairly well known for the 100-mile or greater distances.
I did that race, the Gaoligong 165K. It was UTMB's first international event in 2018. And when I finished that thing, it was a spectacle. Like, they had the guy that announced the Beijing Olympics was announcing this 100-mile race. And we finished on this amazing man-built dock carrying the American flag, laser lights, smoke bombs, the whole thing. I was 10th overall, first woman. They put this big old bell around my neck, and they said, well, are you coming back next year? And I just didn't even lift up my head, and I was like, I'm done. And and it's never, that thought has never left. Like, it just feels like I'm done with that level of training, racing, impact on life. And so these last 6 years, I love running, and I want to keep my connection to, I still race direct the Chucking at 50K. I have coaching clients. I'm still very involved, and I'll go volunteer at events. But to train for this one, I started signing up for a few races to get that feeling, and how does it work in my body now. But I don't have this, even in this 100, I don't have the same, it's not that it's a lack of drive. It's the competitive piece to it, or wanting to train to be running up front, or not. I guess I don't have the full verbal side of it. It's definitely a deep feeling of contentment. Like, I'm happy right where I'm at, and I'm capable and able and be able to go do this. And wherever it ends up in the field of being around my community, I see races more as an opportunity to be around my community, and like have a supported long run and people to interact with, and motivation along the way. I told my team multiple times that I would not have finished without them. I had some GI stuff that I had to deal with, as 100-milers can bring up all the pivot points. And I was like, what's the point? And then the point was them. Like, they had all come out there. We can do this. My body wasn't failing me. We just had some rough stuff to deal with. And so there's a lot other, like, all those meanings were there when I was running competitively as well. And those are the ones that are staying through, even though this piece of, call it running up front, isn't there anymore.
Boy, I think you probably covered most of the answers to this question, but there might be some other things around it to compare and contrast the Krissy running for a podium versus the Krissy running for the finish. I mean, there's what goes through your head in preparation, or your meditation, that happens nights before the race, kind of running through the race in your head. What does it look like for someone racing for the podium, and at the same person, the person just racing for a good finish?
I think the reality is of my body, it's 20 years older, like there, or 10, 15 years old, all those age bumps along, that pretty good reality check on how, like, even just going for a run, my run around the lake is not as fast as it used to be, and that's okay. Like, I get to still move and feel good in my body. So I think there's a level of kind of acceptance, I think, in terms of the aging piece, that maybe those 6 years I needed. Like, that I do think there was the gift of the pandemic, silver lining amidst that forced or pushed out. Maybe I would have tried to race again sooner, but I think having that larger gap makes the different mindset of the girl that was racing for the podium and the person that's was concerned about cutoffs, but like racing or running to finish the event. Having time between was helpful, even though I still butted up against, gosh, the last time I did one of these, I won a world. It's the brain's kind of funny that way.
So how do you process some of that and giving yourself the grace while you're running it, or acceptance and being okay with it, and not it creating the situation of not moving as fast? Because we're all aging. I mean, listening to this podcast, we'll be a little bit older than when we started. So it's the process that we all face. How do you internalize that and take that emotion and put it where it belongs, so that you can still, operate efficiently and enjoy yourself? How did you become okay with it? And I hope that's an okay way to state it, because we all experience that, all of us.
Definitely. And I wouldn't say it's like, now I have it all figured out. Like, it's, again, one of those things, like, it's not here to there and I got it right. It's ping ponging all around. And after San Juan solstice, I dealt with bits of it and then came back to it. And but I would say, like, control the controllables is the big one. So, like, if I'm fretting about the cutoffs, or if my body's gonna be able to go far enough, or I don't know any of that stuff. Those are all the anxiety inducing what ifs, where I can control how much I eat. I can control how I pace myself so that I don't run out too fast and use up all my energy in the first 30 or 50 miles of the event. So I tried to stop letting my brain go on all of the thoughts of the what ifs and what is. And so I noticed in one of my those high altitude, when I was out there training, or not training, acclimating, I wasn't getting much more training in those 10 days, but being up high, I wasn't eating as much. And so I was like below 200 calories an hour. And I know I've been on here talking about how much, your stomach is your like superpower when you're out there, and I wasn't using it that way. So I made some adjustments. I never used drink mix in my competitive career, but I wasn't getting the calories in training runs. So I teamed up with Scratch of late, just awesome group of people, and they've just loaded my cupboard, loaded the car, just set me up with a bunch of product. And so I added their high carb drink to my bladder, and that seemed to just make the difference on what I was eating, and then adding calories through the drink as well. And being more conscious of eating every 20 minutes instead of every 30 minutes, so that I could get a little bit extra in. So, and then pacing, just letting everybody go. Oh, one of the coolest moments of the race, speaking of letting everybody go, they really wanted women standing on the starting line. And to this, women still don't stand on the starting line. So I'm like, I will. Like, I'll stand up here with the guys. I always wanted to. I hated having to be behind before. So, well, now.
Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?
I was standing with Jeff Browning and Luke Nelson, my two trail running brothers, Tramley, if you call it trail family. And we were taking photos, and they're like, women. And I was like, well, I'm not going to step back now. Like, come on. Anyways, so, they lead out of this field, and then there's a pretty steep road descent down to get out to the Colorado Trail. And this pack of people went by me on the road. It was 15 women. And I was like, this is what it's about. Like, talk about transformation, just the sport transforming that all I looked through, and I was like looking for anybody that represented differently. And I was like, this is a group of women, like massive, 15 passing me. And I love that about High Lonesome is they have equal spaces for men and women, and non-binary as well as representation allows. So they had, at this event, they had 100 men and 100 women on the starting line. So you better believe at the end, I was like, okay, how many women finished and how many men finished? What was the percentages? And it was 69 women finished and 74 men finished. So pretty even. Yeah. I thought it was cool factoid.
Hey, so I get it, Krissy. Intellectually, you can say, you know what? I am not racing up for the podium. I'm racing for a solid race finish and perform as well as I can. Got it. But then you step up, race day, bib is on. Come to the front of the line. You're in the front of the line. How do you somehow keep with your intellectual, I'm ready to run it with my new body, and all of a sudden being pushed up front, bib on, ready to go, 4, 3, 2, 1, bang. How do you turn back into the intellectual side and not continue with your race side?
But I don't think it was intellectual. I think it was emotional, because the word that just came to mind for me was joy. Like just being amidst all those people looking for my crew, that they were cheering as I went by, and it was just joy. Like, here I am, I get to do this. My body 26 years later is still able to like feel confident to get out here. Didn't feel confident a little bit before, I acknowledge that, but now and here I am. And so do the things that brought me that confidence, and those were pacing well, let all those girls cruise by and do their thing. And yeah.
Did you miss it, Krissy? Did you miss it? Did you say, yes, this is why I've done it all these years, and I put this bib on and put myself at risk out here because there's something out here that's unique and different than I can find anywhere on the planet?
Yep. You nailed it. Exactly.
So have you registered for your next 100-miler yet?
No, and I definitely had the moments out there. Why am I doing this? Like, this is like, why do I need to put myself through? I had all of those, all 3 pacers had to hear it. Like,
do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?
I did not say that. I definitely did not say that part. But definitely was the lack of.
I was gonna say, if I was pacing you, I'd be saying, "Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are?"
Yeah, they were fantastic. I don't know if we should twist on this, but I was really curious if you guys have looked into this at all. And if you want to cut this part out, we totally could.
No, we can't cut it out. We don't have anything to talk about.
Oh, but the Martin, MAURTE, and they sponsored the event. And I tried those gels probably around mile 15, mile 20, and it was great. Have you guys used them?
Yes, black packages, very smooth, good
interesting texture.
Yes.
Yeah. But it worked. I mean, I felt great energy, and I was like, well, this is awesome. Having tried something new on race day. Having this is
that's in your book, Krissy. That's in your book.
I know.
And you went against the advice that's in your book.
Both editions. Both editions.
I paid the price. Yeah. Well, somebody's got to be the guinea pig and tell everybody else, don't do what I did. So don't do what I did. And so about mile 62, anything I put towards my mouth triggered, like, it just went through me. I couldn't keep anything in, and I was diving for the bushes, and just, we'll stop there in terms of details. But my pacer was aware. He's like, the Martin has the sodium bicarbonate, and taken in excess can cause GI distress. Like, maybe we should back off. And I'd probably taken 8 of those from mile 15 to mile 60 or so. And they were working fantastic in terms of energy. And so then I stopped those, got some Pepto-Bismol, but then I had some hours where no calories were going in, and kind of led towards the not having energy to really run at the end. I was able to keep moving, but I've looked on their website and I've emailed them, And I'm just curious, they say that their research does not support, or is not, the research is ongoing for long distance events. So, and they included marathon in that. So I have, yeah, if you guys have any sciencey other info on, have you used them for more than, because I was like, I never tested it in my system either. So maybe had I used them over a 14-hour, I never did a 14-hour run other than the San Juan solstice, but had I trained with them, maybe my GI would have been fine with it. But in that situation, being new and too much of the sodium bicarbonate, I don't know.
It's right under the category of try nothing new on race day. I think that's probably very true. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, I'm curious, Krissy. I mean, you've done so many of these races. Have you had GI distress before? And have you had to deal with it?
Yeah, but not that severe. But the one that comes to mind was I traveled to Patagonia, Chile, to do I think it was like a 40-mile race, and my flight was delayed. I ate pizza in the airport. Like it was just all the wrong stuff, within, and then woke up 3 hours later to run a race. Like by the time I got there, put on clothes and went. So that was out of my hands. This one was totally my own doing because it's new gel in town. I hadn't tried it yet.
Go ahead, Scott. I know. I'm going to ask a question that you would ask. Okay, so write down yours. Scott would ask this question ordinarily. Krissy, what did you learn from this race that you didn't know about?
I think the piece that surprised me, maybe, if it's not necessarily learned, but coming back up that road, you finish, it's like a kind of, I think it's like a 9-mile lollipop stick, big loop, but with the stick. Coming back up that steep road, it kind of very emotional, said to Monica, I was like, I think I needed to prove to myself that I could do this. I had this whole, I've been dating a guy for 3 years now, and he has 2 little girls that I've known for 2+ years. And it felt very important for me to have them witness this whole thing and be a part of this part of my life. And so that motivated a lot of the training. I worked around our family schedule quite a bit. Like training was very different this time. Like I said, my longest training run was 5 hours prior to the San Juan solstice. And then after that, that was kind of it. Like I didn't do the things I normally would go spend all day out in the mountains training for a 100-miler. And I didn't do any of that this year, but that was all part of this version of doing it. Like this body, this life, this, like all the dynamics of things that I have going on. And that motivated all of it. And so to have that moment at the very end of like, oh, this still was for me too. That I still kind of, it surprised me.
I want to stop there and just pause for a minute. Isn't that crazy that you're running this race? You think that a lot of what we do is very selfish. And here you're running this race, and it wasn't until mile 99 that you realized that you were running it for yourself. And I think that is one of the things, when you get back to, one of the themes you said of an aging athlete. I think as we get older, we stop, hopefully, thinking so much about what's in it for me and thinking about what can I contribute. And here you're contributing this race and want to see these 2 young girls see a woman accomplish something that is just amazing. And you want to embed that into their psyche at this early age. And now I'm filling your mouth full of my words. Maybe that was your why at this race. And then at mile 99, you went, hey, wait a minute. I'm doing this for me too. Anyway, that's what I'm that's what I'm hearing. I don't know if it's all true or if that's what you were thinking, but I think that's one of the things as an aging athlete that we kind of move away from a little bit more from the selfish to what can I contribute.
And it's always been, I feel like this kind of reiterate, like I go back to like the Tahoe Rim Trail FKT. There's a photo up on my bookshelf of that crew that was 13 people came to help be a part of that event. And like all these, I always pulled together these big teams. Like I was the girl that showed up with the 2 cars and getting in trouble for having too many people at the aid station. Like I just loved that. And this one, it was in the, trying to do it differently. I actually paid for a campsite and thought I would just go do it in the van by myself. And then it all kept evolving of like, no, I want these people here. And then sure enough, you see there's like 3 pacers, guy and the girls. So it's this whole posse once again. And it is, to me, like, yes, it's a very individual thing and it's hard to ask for support sometimes. And maybe as I get older, that's, for me, it gets even harder to ask for those extra help bits. But then when you do, you just open yourself up to so many more cool experiences. And having each of those pacers along for the part that they did, I needed them there. And then having Guy and the girls show up at the aid stations, and little Etta, she's 5 years old, just wiping my face down with a cold, wet wash rag and holding up all the, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? It's just, yeah. And then they brought vuvuzelas, those big soccer horns. They had, like, I could hear those miles from the aid stations. They blew them in for every runner, like just creating all of that. I don't know, add so much more to it. Yeah, sure, I could have driven the van down.
You're creating a new generation of ultra runners there. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, I just want to make a note that we've never been invited to be part of your crew.
We can change that.
Just making an observation here, Krissy. I think we've become good enough friends that it wouldn't be hard for you to ask Don and myself to be a crew. if we woke up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Don.
I've shown up to races like you thinking, I've got this, I don't want to impose on anybody here, and it's just going to be kind of my solo attempt and event, and I'm not going to create a problem for anybody and just get it done. But then as it turns out, I can't get it done. There's somebody from the community that jumps in, a volunteer here or there. Somebody has a light that I didn't have. Somebody drove a car down from the starting point to the end point because I never really even thought about that. So I'm not a real good planner. But I found out, and part of the strength of the community, everybody pitches in. Everybody wants to help you get your goal accomplished. And that's the magic. And then finishing up those last group of miles thinking how fortunate I am to be around a group like this, and had that person not done this and that person not done this, I wouldn't have finished. It was because of that extra goo that was given to me in this stretch, or some Succeed tablets with some electrolytes in it, on and on, or the light, or my car being brought down. A community really pulls together and helps us with our goals. And I think that's humanity. I think that's trail running, and it's fun to be part of it.
I agree. Yeah, it's on huge display the longer the distance gets, I think.
Yes.
Hey, I want to know. I in the brief amount of research I did on High Lonesome, I'm curious if you know about the organization that puts this and those 250Ks back-to-back 50Ks on. It seemed like that organization is kind of unique. Is it? Do you know much about it? The group that puts these races on?
Yeah, the race directors, Caleb and his wife Kelsey, I got to know them a bit at the Sawatch 50/50 last year, and then through email. I mean, and Caleb and I actually at the end of the 100-miler had a really great exchange, because we'd never talked face to face about the fact that he sent me that email that said, "You're not qualified to do this." And so he's like, "Just so you know, I did know who you were," because I didn't write back. I just sent him my ultra sign up thing, and I was like, "I think I have enough qualifications. Here's my ultra sign up page, blah blah blah." And he's like, "Well, but you haven't done one in the last 2 years, blah blah." And so he's like, "I did know, and I thought about making." I was like, "You know what? I'm glad you held to it. Like, it made for this whole experience. Like, I came and earned it back. Like, there was so many steps that needed to happen." And so he handed me my bottle of whiskey, and I thought that was a pretty fun, like, wrap to the whole thing. Anyways, but to answer your question, yeah, so it's the 2 of them. Then they have a board of directors, about 10. I think they introduced about 10 people at the race briefing or whatever the night before. They're very, I really appreciate some of the initiatives they've taken, like having 50% men and women, and then open spots for non-binary as applied. They're actually pretty, from what I understand, against like UTMB and certain ways of the way that the sport is being commercialized. So they don't like they won't use that as a qualifier for their event, and so they have some pretty just hard and fast rules about how they're putting on their events, and it shows when you're there. Like everybody takes really great pride. You mentioned the volunteers. There was if I remember right, it was a 4-to-1 ratio of volunteers to runners.
Wow.
Like, so, yeah, I mean, we're like 1-to-5 volunteers to runners at Chuckanut. They're the opposite, 4-to-1 volunteers. You know what I'm saying? So
yes,
it's like, wow, that's a lot of people to pull from little Buena Vista, Colorado to, and they actually say people fly in to be a part of it. So they've got quite a following. And I guess this was the 7th year that it's been going.
You know, I saw this table of bottles of whiskey. Sounds like as a finisher, you get a bottle of whiskey. Do you know the significance and tradition behind that?
That's one of the big sponsors of the event. And the highest pass that you go over, the Antero Pass, or no, not Antero Pass, sorry. Antero Pass was the first one. And then the pass that we went over to Cottonwood, they call it Laws Pass. Laws is the brand of whiskey. They put a sign up just for race weekend. Because I was sharing it with some friends that are locals, and they're like, it's not called Laws Pass. It's called, whatever the actual name of the pass is. So they've, just there's the sponsor that works with them. And they were also the sponsor of the Sawatch last year. I came home with 3 bottles of whiskey. My boyfriend was stoked because I don't do whiskey.
I actually think that is really interesting that a whiskey brand would sponsor an ultra race.
Mm-hmm.
I'm even thinking, as our community is beer drinkers, I don't know if there's any races that are sponsored by beer companies.
Fair.
It's all gels and shoes and shirts and shorts. That's interesting.
Didn't Western States have wasn't Budweiser or somebody was a flagship sponsor? Well, now I'm calling back and I'm hallucinating.
Ultra, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe that was it.
No, I think it was Michelob Ultra. Actually, one year jumped in there. We have our local.
Is that a beer?
Yeah, right.
Well, that's up for debate.
That can be argued, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Our local brewery, Wander Brewing, sponsors Chuckanut. They did a special chin scraper beer this year. That was pretty sweet.
Cool. Hey, I'm going to go back to that comment that you made earlier when you talked about the rainbow and the moth, and you said, don't talk about my woo-woo. And I'm not going to poo-poo on your woo-woo at all, because I'm right there with you. I look for those things. I believe there's messages coming down, and some of us can walk by them and not even recognize it, and I would imagine the universe is busy planting them everywhere we can, right in front of us 1,000,000 times, and we just keep walking by and don't look. But they're out there. So I love to look for them too. So do you think, as we're going into woo-woo, do you think that a race itself, not the race event, but the you being in it, and that race has something waiting for you to learn, that we need to pay attention through the race, at the lessons that are laid out there for us? Because as you run, you lose a lot of the ego, you lose a lot of, you're talking to somebody and sharing things that, like, that's kind of personal. I don't think I would share this ordinarily with someone, but you feel safe. You're out there on the trail. So I think we're very exposed to whatever's out there and messages that come in, freedom to think that way. So do you think there are lessons waiting for us to get us in that depleted state, that raw state, that are there just to come into our existence?
I do. I feel the funny thing is this time I feel like I was looking for him because I'd had so much come in right before and processing and everything that, like, during the race, I feel like I just got to be. Like, it wasn't, yes, I had there were special moments for sure. But there wasn't these like big ahas, or I think a lot of that came ahead of time, being really aware of all the feelings I had. So just saying this out loud for the first time, but I kind of wonder if maybe I had that awareness leading into, like, had I not, if I just like tried to shove it down, oh no, it's no big deal, then I would have had to try and deal with it during the race. But the fact that I found a way to process it through writing and talking and putting a moth tattoo on my leg, gives me, like, allowed the race to be what it was and unfold as it is. I didn't have, I mean, sure, I said that, I don't need to do this anymore, but in the sense of like, yeah, Krissy, whatever, let's keep going. Like, it wasn't truly impactful of like, this is what I'm really meaning. It's just, gosh, this is hard. So I do believe that, though. I do think, like, if you're not aware, and those races will strip you down and you will find it. So maybe I had it was in my face enough that I had the awareness and ahas ahead of time, that once I was out there, like, I lost my marbles when we went over those high mountain passes. It was so beautiful. Like, I'm like, these are those photos where the mountains are just right there and you're at the pass. And then when we left with my pacer at the 50 mile, we hiked up this we thought it was the head wall, but it was this climb. And we got to the top and he like stepped off the trail. He's like, oh my gosh, you've got to see this. And the moon was rising right over the pass, and it was full moon. It was lighting up the whole landscape. And I was like, poles up, dancing around, yelling at all the other people that were up there. And just like, this is why I do this. Like, these places are so spectacular. Like, so.
And that life lesson is, no matter how much in a hurry you are, stop and pause and take a look and appreciate what's going on, because tomorrow it's not going to be here. It's here right now. Enjoy it. And I think that's an important lesson in life. And when we talked about, is there a lesson in the race? But for you, the race doesn't start just when the bib's on, but when you made the commitment. There may have been lessons started right there, and not just from the gun to the finish line. Yeah. So, it's, I'm talking us into running in a race here soon, Scott. Do you see what I'm building up?
Is that what you're doing?
I think so.
Yeah. Hey, Krissy, I'm curious where you are today as an aging athlete. Are you comfortable with where you are?
Much younger than us, Scott. She's much younger than us. So
I mean, I thought everybody that's watching this on YouTube can obviously tell that we're older than Krissy, but I'm just curious because I'm trying to come to my own grips. I did a run this this week that it was just short 6-mile run, and I felt like I shouldn't even own a pair of running shoes. It was that bad of a run. And so I'm trying to come to grips with my aging running identity. Where are you?
The word I would use is curious. Like, I'm just really curious about my body and how it's changing, and how I think my partner and others are sick of hearing me talk about perimenopause, and how that impacts how my mood and my running, and the days that feel good and the days that don't. And yeah, just constantly like sponging and soaking up information about what is it? Like, why does it feel so different? Why can't I run like I did? Like, it's not that I'm trying to compete with my younger self, but what is it that actually changes? So, like, just to have a sense of understanding for it.
Hey, can I put a plug in here while you just mentioned that? You need to write about that. There's not much that is written about perimenopause, and I think that you need, since you already have this gift of being able to write well, and you're going through it, I think you should write a book about it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we'll start with the Patagonia. That's kind of the we'll start with the Patagonia blog post. And I also want to bring in, it's like, yes, it's experiential, but what are some of the facts? And they're, like you said, there's not a lot. The research is being done now. It's been done in the last 5 to 10 years that we're seeing how hormone replacement therapy isn't as scary as it was. And there's a whole generation of women that missed out on the support of that for their symptoms because of the breast cancer study in 2008. So there's like all these the kind of misnomers and then lack of research. And we've all been going through it for eons. Like, why is it just now coming to light? And it's wonderful because it is coming to light. And there's females in much more privileged positions than I am that are throwing tons of money at it, and like Oprah Winfrey for one, or Cameron Diaz, like these athletes, huge names, are making a stake in this and helping women advance through this part of life with less stress and gross symptoms, for lack of better words.
And you think about, and I've only become aware of this because of my wife. A lot of the research, medical research that has been done for humanity, I'm air quoting humanity, was done on men. They never even considered how does this, men and women are different, and they just assume let's do the research on men, and that's where we'll go. That's the research. The findings are for women and men, and that's not the case in many cases.
And a piece of that is a pushback on why you wouldn't study women is because you can't. It's too many variables. The hormones are changing so consistently, not consistently, but like so differently throughout the month that like the way I respond to, say, an exercise test in the first 2 weeks of my cycle versus the second 2 weeks of my cycle is not it's tough for science to control that study. So it's easier to study men because they don't have that change. But by the way, it's 50% of the population. We should
right. Or probably more.
Or a study of. So
it's much easier when your control group are 22-year-old males in college, looking to.
Yeah. Well, and then throw that on it. It's like, what, say 20 to 35. You guys aren't even in that, right? Like
not even close.
Yeah.
Hey, so while Scott's handing out assignments to you, Chris.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, I'll say real quick, and Ryan will clean this up nicely. And if you're watching on YouTube, you get to see it all. And if you're listening just on a podcast, you'll never know this happened. And so while Scott's handing out assignments and books for you to write, I might just suggest that the perimenopause section is just a chapter. But I think overall, aging athletes would be a fantastic book that would be picked up over and over by both men and women.
Yeah, we're all there.
Go ahead.
I got it. It's in the series of Running Your First Ultra. The next book is Running Your 50th Ultra or something like that. How's that, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe there's something there, Krissy.
Yeah, let's keep dreaming and keeping her busy.
I would say that this one almost felt like a first again, right? Coming back to it. So maybe there's something there. You were back on the lessons or what the takeaways were. There's something about putting so much energy into doing these 100-milers. And I got this phrase from a beautiful friend of mine, this exceptional period. And I think about the time that I did set aside to train. And even though it wasn't like I used to, I still had to pull some time from our family to be able to get in my training. Or the 10 days that I was out in Colorado sleeping in a Subaru, trying to sleep as high as possible to acclimate. These like exceptional things we do to accomplish these like kind of out there goals. And I feel like that's like a takeaway no matter where you are in the field. Like it takes more than just, I just run in and then I go do one. This isn't like to be able to do a long distance or ultra distance event. It's special how we pull people together and how we take the time to prepare for it and go through the mental jujitsu of understanding how you're going to make yourself like get from A to B on race day. And so, yeah, I like that phrase, exceptional period, because it's also challenging to think like, is this what life is always like? Like, am I always going to be living in a Subaru? You're not. So you can like mark it by these parentheses of exceptional period.
That's one of the things that I've stated this on an episode before, is that you have to look at who you are at that moment at the start line. And then you have to be a wise enough runner with enough practical experience to say, okay, now what is it going to take to get this body to the finish? Not what I've done in the past or not what my goals are, but let's look and see how this is going to play out today. I know I've got to start out at a certain point and read how I'm feeling and make an adjustment and be in real time navigator of your body, your athletic body that you have to move from A to finish. How is this going to go down? And what kind of fine adjustments do I make along the way so I can make it? And am I wise enough to see the clues coming at me? This is a problem that my pace is too high. This is a problem that I'm dehydrated. This is a problem that I don't have enough fuel. You need to be reading that almost like if you were in an avatar in a game and you had somebody at home playing this game with the ultra runner. I need to slow my person down. I need to run to the aid station and pick up a few more lives so I can get on. I could see it really is managing the body that you show up in. And I think that that creates a different sport.
Well, first time having the awareness to do it, right? I mean, I would say in our, earlier generation, like how many people did you see just run till they blew up? Like that was kind of what aid stations was piecing people back together that had just run as hard as they could. I feel like there's a lot more awareness and people talking about how do you do these things in the way that you just did of it's not just running as hard as you can. It is like fueling and pacing and taking care of little things before they become big things. Don't try new things on race day. Like all the that information is more aware and or prevalent for people to be aware of, and that's making better ultra runners. Like watch see how these times are coming down and gears changing, all of those kind of things.
Yeah, if the real fast people started operating like the real slow people, then they would really go fast.
And I think it's happening.
Yeah,
there's a lot more strategy. I feel like it's evolved in terms of how people pace these things and fuel these things and try and like come on stronger at the end, or like it's a lot more intentional about how to get there. I remember the Eric Cliftons and the Jen Sheltons that would and set world records doing it. Like they would run as hard as they could and hope that the finish line came before their body gave out, and it was risky. And they could do it sometimes, and it was phenomenal to watch. And then there's like a more strategic play of like trying to span your energy over the whole distance, and then how do you push at the right times to get it out, to get the like course record or whatever it is that you're shooting for, or just to finish in my case. But
so your victory at UTMB, take that body, and then take
victories.
Victories more than one, and then take your brain today. Put that brain inside that Krissy. What would have happened? Would you have been faster? Do you think maybe you completed that because of you just didn't know and you just ran to, if the wheels didn't fall off and wow, and look how fast it happened? Or do you think you'd be faster using today's brain in that body?
I love that question. I love that question.
I feel like if you go back and look at how that course unfolded, like it was Jared Campbell that pointed it out to me when I went through in 2009. That was more significant win. I was like 160th through mile 30 or something, and then made my way up to 100 by mile 50, and ended up in close to the top 10. I think it was 11th or 12th or something overall the year that I won. And I think just even those data points, I did race that way. Like I was a conservative. I always said that I had a pretty strong governor. Like some people don't have it. They can just run through and not pace. And I had a governor that wouldn't let me run with them up front. Like when I tried to run hard at the beginning, I just wouldn't, whatever it was. So I feel like maybe I wasn't as conscious of it as I am now, but my body raced that way through most of my competitive career.
Was that learned, Krissy? Or was that just innate in your personality?
I want to say innate. I mean, I was such a sponge though, so I want to give credit to all the people I surrounded myself with. I learned a lot from running with the Scotts and the whole Seattle, Scott Jurek and Scott McCreery and the Seattle crew, and David Horton, and just all these people names, I'm total name dropping, that I got to like grow up around. So I got to believe there's influence from that, as well as just like what I chose to take from them and apply to my own racing.
Yeah, I would give you a PhD level education in ultra running. You certainly just not a master's, but full PhD. You've had some tremendous professors along the way.
Tremendous professors, I agree.
Okay, so this is where we get super serious, Krissy. And maybe not an appropriate question.
Scott, I've been serious since the start. Have you been holding back on us?
I didn't take you seriously. I want to know 10 years from now, 10 years into the future, what does Krissy Moehl look like? What are you still identifying as a runner and getting out there, or where are you?
I hope so. We play this game a lot because the girls are 8 and 5, and so when in 10 years they'll be 15 and 18, and I was like, I'll be 56 and 56 with a 15-year-old. Like, what? We play that a lot. Gosh, I sure hope so. I want to keep up with them. I want to keep, cheering them on, running a lot. If I can run with them, that would be amazing. So I've always made decisions so that I can keep running, and I feel like stopping the competitive racing, not just 100-milers, but competitive racing 6 plus years ago, was part of that, because I want to keep running. And I don't know that the long stuff, as frequently as I was doing it, was good for my long-term health. Like, that's a little bit more of the transitioning female or perimenopausal hormone transition. Part of it is long endurance stuff isn't necessarily the best for my hormonal profile. We're lifting heavy weights, and short bursts and speed is actually better for like my bone health and longevity and maintaining muscle mass. Like, endurance I'm a little bit like lean right now. I need to put some more muscle mass back on, kind of feeling after that 100. And I'm aware of that piece too. So making decisions that I can keep moving, whether it's, picking off a 100-miler once every 6 years, or sprinting around the soccer field and cheer the kids on, kind of thing. I want movement to be a part of my life, and running obviously is the biggest mental bonus for me. So as long as I can keep that in there, I think that'll be a pretty happy Krissy in 10 years.
Yeah. I love that answer.
I think your message is heard well by people that haven't aged yet or on their way to aging. I think there's a lesson in there for all of us: short game, long game, running for different reasons besides just position on the podium or just to be around the community. There's or standing on a mountaintop and looking at the sunset. There's a lot of gifts out there that are waiting for us if we just stay with it. I know many times Scott and I are on a run, and there's a point where you can kind of see or feel the freeway. We know it's over there, about 4 miles. There's a freeway, and people are traveling it. And we say, or at least I say, I don't know if he listens to me, there's a lot of people that don't even know this is here. And here we are, just in our own world. It looks much like it did 100 years, 200, 500 years ago, just like this. They're over there racing up and down the freeway, trying to position themselves so they can go the fastest. And we're over here just drinking it all in. So there's a lot to gain out there.
I'm with you. Losing my marbles on those mountaintops. I don't just take it in. I freaking lose my marbles.
Well, we started out. We didn't even know what we were going to say. We started out. We didn't know what the conversation was going to be about. We could never have written this down. We just come with an open mind and Krissy.
Well, and in all fairness, we'll pull the curtain back a little bit. Earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday, we were talking. Oh, we have the podcast with Krissy. What are we going to talk about? And Don quickly said, "Does it matter?" It really doesn't matter. We're having Krissy on. It's going to be a great conversation, and
that's so sweet.
It was very easily for me to agree to that. And obviously, at least to 3 of us, well, I guess all 4 of us, we felt it was a good conversation.
Oh, thanks,
so
guys.
Krissy, thanks for coming on, and don't stay away for so long, will you?
Oh, there's always good energy on here. I always go, why did it take so long? And this whole aging athlete thing, I would love. Yeah, we've chatted a little bit about where this goes. I hope we can see something of it on here.
Let's do a series. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, will you make sure that when Patagonia finally gets their lawyers and their editors to push through your blog posts, that you come back on and
Oh, great.
let's revisit
Oh, that'd be great.
and promote that for you, because I know for at least one of us on the podcast right now wants to read those posts.
Right on. Thanks. Yeah, and and Scarpa is doing the aging athlete interview series soon. So I'm hopeful to keep that foot on that gas pedal now that the 100-miler's over.
Well, it sounds like my suggestion is to be late for the party. Somebody's already doing it, but I do think there's some key guests that could come on and share with Krissy and bring in a small panel of experts. Just going to throw it around. What about the menopausal time? What about bone density? What about knee replacement? What about on and on you go of how the body changes.
And a lot of the questions you asked too, of like, what was that brain versus this brain? How was the sport then versus now? Like getting that through. And my interest is not only runners. I'd love to talk to alpinists and I mean, watching the Olympics now, I'm like, I saw a video of Michael Phelps cheering on some other runners swimmers. And I'm like, what's his story? Like, where is he at in this whole thing? Like, how does his body feel after winning as many Olympic medals as he did? Like, those questions would be so fun.
Yeah.
Hey, one final question before we end, Krissy. If Snoop Dogg right now ran for president, would you vote for him? I think he's been doing an amazing job at the Olympics, and I think that he would be my candidate that I would vote for president this fall.
Such a vibe. I love any little snippets I've seen of him dancing with the athletes, and he's such a vibe. He's perfect for that role at the Olympics. I haven't heard any, and I need to get on and listen. I haven't actually heard him announce. I've just seen videos of him doing like the torch carrying and that stuff.
I saw a video of him supporting one of the women's volleyball teams, and he had a shirt that had one of the one team member, screen printed on it, and then he had a jacket with her partner on the jacket, and he was up there. He watched the whole match, and he was out there cheering and screaming. And I thought, you know what, this guy, he doesn't need to be doing that. And there's a lot of notable people there, real rich celebrities there, but they're not putting themselves out like he is. I kind of like his vibe. So anyway, Ryan will probably cut all this stuff out because it has nothing to do with running, but it doesn't really matter how old.
We'll just make it a separate podcast. It'll be fine, and
okay,
people can listen to that. So go with your great rap.
Maybe
I'm ready.
Let's get Snoop Dogg on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, can I be on that one?
Yes.
Hey, it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're just starting and whether you're 60 years old and you're just starting this wonderful sport, or you're a teenager and starting, or whether you're an aging athlete. The best thing to do is just lace up your shoes, find a trail, and go out and run.
Mas.